Welcome to On the Mark. I'm your host, Howard Mark Rubin. I am so excited to present this podcast series addressing our rapidly changing world and how it is affecting industries and people in unique and interesting ways. As John F. Kennedy once said, change is the law of life, and those who look only to the past or present are certain to miss the future. The business leaders and personalities who I will be interviewing in these podcasts certainly look to the future. And I hope you come away with information and inspiration that helps you adapt in both your business and personal lives. You can find these podcasts on all major platforms, including YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on our website, getsplatzer.com. Welcome to On the Mark. Today, we're talking about a business that came to the forefront in my mind. I'm sure it existed before, during the COVID time. And that's virtual services, reception services, other services related to receptions and businesses who no longer were operating in the office anymore. And today we have the CEO of One Voice Solutions, Jennifer Schmittler, who not only has a great smile, but she has a great background in this business. So welcome to On the Mark, Jennifer.
Thank you, Howard. This is exciting.
Okay, well, why don't we start off with, how did you get into this crazy business? I mean, you don't look like the kind of person that woke up one day and said, you know what, I want to be in the virtual receptionist business. How did that come about?
No, I actually was dear friends with the angel investor who launched the company in 2010. And he had brought me in as a consultant to really do compliance, finance, accounting, and sort of clean up everything back end. And I slowly pivoted in the role of CFO and then CEO. I love the industry. I love working with different companies, hearing their challenges, really providing a best-in-class service suite that allows every company to have our expert service.
Okay, and what did you do before this? How long have you been doing this business?
Gosh, since 2010. Prior to this, I was in financial planning, client services. I was the CFO for one of the largest franchisors. Started out in corporate finance for ABC, ESPN, and Kenneth Cole Productions.
Now, when you started this business, was this a startup or was this already an operating business?
It was operational for about 6 months before I came in.
Okay, so that's basically a startup when
Correct.
When you came in. Okay, so let's talk about the business itself. Now, my business is a service business. I'm a lawyer in a law firm, and there are businesses that have a lot of people come to the office. Like in my office, not like as much as they used to, but if people come to the office, medical practices, accountants, lawyers. A lot of businesses have people come in the office. A lot of businesses, particularly since COVID, are virtual businesses. They don't have people come to the office. Now, when you're providing services to a business that has people coming into the door to see people, how does that work? That someone comes in the door, they can't see a robot or a computer screen. They have to they want to see a person. So how does that work with your services for a business that needs to have somebody greet someone when they come in the door?
So we're reducing that front desk staff. So usually it does make sense if you have a very service, person-centric, needed in office operation where clients are coming to visit you. I can understand the need that somebody has to be at that front desk, but not necessarily full-time. So what happens with a lot of businesses, even law firms, is you have someone sitting as front desk reception, and there's a lot of downtime where there's really not enough tasks to fill their hour for productivity, but you're paying them that full wage. So what we're doing is we're alleviating that expense from an organization, providing that best of suite service, being the front desk, answering all questions, doing appointment settings, transferring phone calls, intake work, really whatever is required, and doing that remotely. So they're not presently in your office, they're virtual or in one of my offices.
Well, I know that in the practice of law, COVID had a great impact on how we practice law. In fact, I remember I used to interview associates and they used to ask me things like, how much am I going to get paid? And what are my chances of advancement? Now the first question is, how many days a week do I have to come into the office? that seems to be a lot of businesses. The employees don't want to come into the office at least 5 days a week, 4 days a week. But I see that shifting.
It
I see
is.
it in the financial services industry, legal industry, and accounting industry. They're making people come in more. Uh, will that affect your business that now people are being forced to come into the office more? Because if we have to pay people to come into the office, and you're right that if the receptionist has a lot of downtime, well, the answer is not just give it to you. We have to find something for them to do that makes sense. So how is that going to affect your business, or how
I
has
don't
it?
see it really affecting our business. So everyone needs to have that contact. So we're not just telephonic, we're also text and email. So we do a lot with the customer journey, the patient journey. One of our clients, we do all their intake work for their hospital network. So where they used to have an internal call center, and those were the employees that were required to come in, they were able to outsource that entire service to us. And then also reduce their need to have X number of people sitting at that front desk. So while there's someone there greeting someone, making sure they have all their paperwork, and then someone else answering those phone calls, that requirement of someone answering the phone calls has been removed. And then our agents are making sure as well, all of that insurance information, all of their address information is accurate. Everything's updated in their CRM prior to that patient even arriving at that front desk.
Okay, so I assume there are industries that are, I'll call it your sweet spot, the bulk of your business. I would assume, and when they say assume, I make an ass of me and you. That's what it is. But I would assume that a medical industry would be something that is within your sweet spot. I would also assume that small law firms would not be within your sweet spot. There wouldn't be enough work, or small accounting firms, small service type businesses. Are medical firms, or what other firms are there that are more beneficial, gets the greatest benefit from your type of services?
I'm going to say no. Smaller companies that are growing, right, don't want to necessarily have that expense. So besides us having this premier, right, enterprise level efficiency that most larger organizations have, we come in and we provide that for the smaller organizations at a better price point than them having to hire that full-time team.
But let's talk about what industries. There are different industries that have different needs. The needs of a law firm are different than the needs of a medical office, or a dental office, or a financial services firm. Are you saying that from the services you provide, there's no difference, and that you're providing the same services and they're just as efficient no matter what the industry is?
Correct. I mean, obviously the services vary. For healthcare facilities, it's a lot. There's a lot more training involved for our agents. They have to be HIPAA certified. They have to really understand Epic software, or whatever that software solution is that healthcare organization provides. So that training is pretty detailed, tedious, and it's a little tiresome, but they love what they do. When it comes down to just being front desk reception, it's much easier. It's appointment setting, greeting someone with a smile, really making sure that person has that warm touch when they answer the phone. On the customer service side, right, we can literally be backup. We can be overflow work. We can handle that full suite of customer service. Not only, checking inventory, but upselling sales, making sure that that customer is happy and will be a repeat customer. So it really depends on the industry or the organization, and everyone has their own unique areas. But no, there really isn't one specific company that we can't serve.
Your services, are they in the United States, or am I going to get someone in the Philippines, or someone like that? Because I always found the biggest problem I have with customer service people is that their English is not so good. Or I know I'm calling Amazon in New York, and I'm getting someone in Vietnam, and they don't really understand. There are cultural differences and things like that. Who are your employees, and where are they located?
We have a really large footprint nationwide. So we have a lot of US based employees, but we also work very closely with nearshore and offshore facilities. And that's really based on the client's requirement for a price point. So the cost of labor is clearly less expensive nearshore and offshore. But there's really solid agents near shore and offshore who have a great command of the English language. And what's really amazing is there's actually AI voice modulations that can actually be incorporated to modify someone's accent. So when they're on a phone, you wouldn't necessarily hear a very strong Filipino accent. It would sound almost more domestic.
That's interesting. So they can actually change the voice itself.
100%. It's
Now,
marvelous.
are there companies that use you for I call it non-business hours? In other words, they're in the office 9 to 5 or something like that, but they want to give 24-hour service to people to call in.
100%.
Okay, so they use you just for the off hours, and they have people in their office during business hours. Is that
Correct.
a common situation?
It's not necessarily so common. So, we obviously operate right 7 days a week. When it comes down to those middle of the night shifts, we do work very closely with partners who that's all they do is they open in the evening hours, the crack of dawn when everyone else is sleeping, and they service those agents or those requirements for our clients. But everything is integrated within the same CRM. So our quality assurance team really oversees the entire spectrum. So when we're contracted with a client, we handle everything from soup to nuts. So it's really seamless, 365.
And how are these agents trained? I would think that you'd need, for instance, on medical issues, there's HIPAA training. Other types of businesses, there's also a lot of regulations. If you're in the financial services industry and someone calls somebody up and says, "What do you think of this stock?" and they say, "Ask the receptionist."
You're not
and
licensed.
They say, you can't say, "That sounds pretty good to me. I always like that stock."
No,
well, you can't do that, right?
Absolutely not.
Unless it's NVIDIA, then that's always been good, so they can say that. But anyway,
so funny.
so how do you train people? Do you do the training? How do they get trained?
No, I personally don't do the training. I have
I didn't mean you personally. I meant you.
Yeah, I have a phenomenal training team. I have a really amazing, bubbly, high energy team that is experts in whatever service we're providing. So if it's customer service, there's a customer journey and decision tree and several days of really intense training to make those agents understand the product, all questions that arise. They come up with their own questions. So they really become a subject matter expert in that space. When it comes to healthcare, understanding the different locations, how many doctors are on staff? Do doctors want to be double booked? Do we want to make sure that every doctor has a full schedule? The type of patient that is going to be calling, right? Is it an urban area? Is it an affluent area? It's very different with demographics, personality, audience, and they're trained to really understand the depth and scope of the entire project.
So let's say we have an offshore, we'll call them offshore, employee in Manila.
Okay.
And that person needs to be trained. He's new in the area. Last week he was selling bananas, and today he's in the call center. And who does the training? Is it a one voice employee, or
yes, it is
one voice do the training, or does one voice hire a company in the Philippines, and that company is then training the employees, and you're just training the people who are training the people? So are you directly training the person providing the services to the customer?
We are directly training them. So it's via Zoom, and our agents that are domestic are watching them, are watching their stats, seeing call duration, making sure that not one phone call is dropped. And they are watching this the entire time that agent is producing or providing a service for our client. Additionally, they also train someone that's there in person who's a manager to make sure there's boots on the ground watching those agents as well. So it's not just our onshore team that is hands-on going through that entire process. We're also facilitating the training of the manager who's going to be there on site.
But doesn't that get more expensive if you have someone who's providing the service in the Philippines, and then you have an American person who's overlooking that person? I mean, there used to be a time, I remember people asked me why I'm cheaper than some other lawyers at big firms. And the reason I said to them is, well, because on a big firm, you have the junior associate, the senior associate, and the partner, and they're all billing you for providing services. That kind of seems like what you're doing here is that you have this person in the Philippines or wherever they are, and then you have your American person who's at a higher rate, and they're now supervising these people. It seems that that would take away a lot of the cost savings of this to the customer.
No, it just takes away our margin. So it eats at our margin. So we operate on small margins, but it's really important for us to provide that superior service. So I'd rather take a lower margin and make sure that we're really coming, through that door and providing the entire experience. So it is a top-notch experience for that consumer, for that patient, and for that client.
Now, are there any requirements for employees to providing these services? Do they have to have a high school degree, a college degree? Is it anyone off the street? Are there any qualifications they have to have before you would hire them?
It depends. So it depends on the type of call center work that they're doing. So someone who has a higher education is usually much quicker and versed at using an omnichannel solution, where they're required to do live chat, text, email, and telephonic work at the same time. But we also hire people who have maybe a GED and have a phenomenal personality and really enjoy people and connecting and are able to connect dots and provide that, customer journey correctly. So we don't discriminate. We don't have necessarily these requirements of an education, but we know when they come in the door and they go through initial training, they'll best be suited within the different client book.
And how do you find your employees? Are they all employees, by the way? Do you use 1099s, meaning independent contractors in your business, or is everybody an employee of the business?
Everybody is an employee of the business.
Okay. And how do you find them? How do you find, like, particularly people overseas? I find that fascinating.
Oh, for overseas?
How are you gonna find them?
Yeah, so for overseas, we've had long-term relationships over a decade, and we have really phenomenal contracts with them. So we build relationships with them. Our onshore trainers are having birthday parties. We have a holiday party for them. Of course, everything's virtual, but no, we don't have our offshore or nearshore on our payroll. So
when you say you had long-term relationships, I assume you're talking about a company offshore.
Correct.
That's now finding people. So are these people that they're hiring, are they their employees or are they your employees?
Nearshore and offshore, they're their employees. But what they do is they actually bring together a full group of applicants. And then we have someone here onshore actually vet each individual, go through an entire training process. And usually we drop about 50% of them after that vetting process, okay, and then sort of staff back up. So in order for them to work under our umbrella, we have very, strict requirements, not only on compliance, but on personality, nuance, and loyalty.
Okay, so are the services that you provide, are they, like, we're doing a video podcast today, and it's always helpful to have this very attractive woman here. You are attractive, other than
Thank you.
Being smart. I'm not going to do any blonde jokes because I have a whole bunch of them, but I'm not blonde jokes.
I think I've heard them all.
Because you're smart. You probably heard them all. But do people see people? In other words, do you virtually ever have employees where the other person, the customer who calls up, wants to see who they're speaking to? They can actually, just like I can see you and we're talking. Yes. Is that a service that's offered? Because usually it's just audio. There's no video. But I would think that I would have a greater level of comfort if the person I'm talking to, I could actually see the person. To me, there's a great, I used to do just audio podcasts, but
right,
when I can see you and I can see a reaction, it gives me a level of comfort, or I think it's better than when you don't. Do you offer that service? Is there any kind of video services that you offer?
Our software does have that functionality. However, most of our clients have not asked us to use it. So they're okay with just having that inbound or outbound telephonic voice, making sure it's a live person, having the email and texting capability. But our software does have that functionality. But you're correct, nonverbals matter. A lot is seen without just the spoken word.
Right. Even if you had it, like, there are people that sometimes the call doesn't go well. I mean, people, they get angry, the person handling the call can't handle it, and it gets. I would assume there's a procedure where it gets bumped up to a manager. It gets referred to someone else. I would think, particularly at that point, it would be helpful to have a video kind of connection. I don't see it in businesses, but to me, I always thought when I have these calls, and you get annoying calls all the time. You're trying to get customer service and it's not working, and you ask to speak to a manager because they just don't understand you, or maybe you don't understand them, or you just want something that's unreasonable. But when you get to the manager, I would think there's a level of comfort if you could actually have video at some point. I'm a big proponent of video rather than just the call part of it.
I prefer the video as well. I even prefer in-person meetings, to make,
Right.
COVID sort of shut that down. And to me,
Right.
it's nice just to go and have a lunch or a coffee, right, with someone and be in person. But there really isn't that need. Most people who are calling customer service are calling to schedule an appointment or calling to schedule a doctor's visit. They're using their phone, right? They're not doing FaceTime, although we do have that functionality. No one's ever requested it, but software stacks now sort of develop that component if required.
Okay. So what happens if someone calls up, a customer calls up and says, I got an emergency. I have to speak to someone immediately. And, he can't be in Manila or Saigon. He has to be someone that I can speak to because I have to know that my problem's going to be taken care of because it's an emergency. What is the person on the other end of the call supposed to do in that kind of situation?
Well, all of our agents are trained to handle emergencies. So to me, right, I think that whenever everybody wants that speed of service, that immediate response. I think even just the younger generation, right, there's no wait times. And that's one of the things that we pride ourselves on is we don't drop a phone call and our wait time is seconds. We don't want people waiting. We don't want someone getting on the phone and not being happy. They want to have that immediate resolution. And we pride ourselves on being able to do that for our clients. So I know that, when you and I had spoke, we had a conversation about AI. And I can't tell you when I try to book a rental car, how frustrated I get when the entire option is doing it through an AI bot. And I can go through it and I'm so accustomed to it. And then it doesn't give me the right service. And I immediately say supervisor, right? Which I know in my company immediately puts you to someone that is a live supervisor. And it's extremely frustrating when they don't have one on staff.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned AI. Has AI affected your industry? It seems to have affected almost every industry. AI has found its way into every industry in the way that we do things. And soon it's going to replace me. And AI is going to be doing these podcasts.
You know what? I don't believe people have this fear. I think it's phenomenal. I use ChatGPT all the time. I think it's what a great tool. When I went to visit my daughter in Florence, she was studying abroad. I used Chat to tell me what to pack. When she was going, what do I pack for her? I'll send a proposal and say, can you polish this up? So I find it to be a phenomenal tool. When it comes down to nuance and that art of conversation and communication, nothing replaces a human being. Where I could see AI will get incorporated into certain software stacks, but in a really clever way. So if someone says the word supervisor, it immediately pings a supervisor on staff. So AI knows what keywords to pull out from a conversation to alert someone else on our team to immediately be able to break into that conversation. So then there's no transfer, there's no hold time, there's no delay. Also with decision tree and dynamic scripting, if we have a client and there's a lot of prompts and a lot of ways a conversation can go, AI can actually be integrated to be able to help that agent pick which responses are best based on how that client or that consumer is communicating. So there's been really phenomenal ways to incorporate it in our industry without it really being a burden. If it's been more of a benefit.
Well, so you have an agent. I'll stop talking about Manila. You have an agent wherever the agent
They're all
is.
over. I mean, we have a ton of
they're all over.
but and Manila, right? And all over the Philippines, but also in Mexico, Honduras,
Okay,
and
well
India.
that's good. And so you have these people, and how do they have access to AI in the call? I don't understand. Someone calls them up and they have this problem. They tell them the problem. Do they go into chat to see
No, no,
what AI is saying? How is AI? You're saying AI has a part of this. I
it
don't
does.
understand how it's integrated in what they're doing.
So it's integrated in the software stack, right? So for our agents, we have specific software solutions that really sort of help bring together the phone call, record everything, right? Document every process on top of showing call duration, making sure no call is missed, understanding a wait time, right? To make sure that we're staffed, correctly. We really want to make sure every single call is answered. We want to be able to text and email. So all of that information is stored, recorded, and documented. When I'm on the phone, just say with you, and you say, Jen, I bought this coffee pot and it's broken and I am angry and I needed this yesterday. The software has all of the different scripts, all of the specs with the coffee pot, right? Where the return policy is, how to get you a call tag. And immediately, based on what your responses are, the AI can actually help populate what script responses that agents should use. So from history, it might say, okay, when you say, we're so sorry, sir, this is a rarity. We want to replace this coffee pot, maybe at no charge. We'll reimburse you for your fees. Whatever we're allowed by that client, those prompts pop up on the screen in the script. And the AI can take what words you're using and help sort of craft that response based on an approved client script that's given to us.
Interesting. All right, let's make believe that you're the person taking the call. And I'm going to give you a situation because I want to figure out how the response would be. So
Yeah, I'm
say
not as good as my agents. I'm not going to lie.
okay, no, you can do your agents, but I'm just trying to get conceptually how this works. So say I'm calling my dermatologist, and so I'm making a call, and the dermatologist is using you, and I tell the person on the call, I was referred by Joe Smith, and I have this lump that I want checked out, and I think I'm nervous about it because I'm nervous. It's a lump and it's on my body. I want an appointment. Now, I want to break down the different parts of this. First, the fact that it was referred by Joe Smith. Does that information, what happens with that information?
It goes in the notes, right? So first,
goes in the notes. Okay.
Correct. So our agent answers, good morning, Dermatology Central.
Right.
And you go, hi, this is Howard. I was referred by Joe. Wonderful to meet you, Howard. Well, thank you, Joe. What's his last name again? And then my agent is typing that into the notes.
Okay.
Right. And then you're discussing your challenge. So they say, oh gosh, let's get you in here as soon as possible. Howard, let me look at the schedule and just collect some basic information from you.
Okay.
And
so the information they collect is they're not going to ask me things like, well, how big is the lump?
no.
They're going to ask me what my medical history, or they're not even going to do that. What are they doing? What's my availability?
Similar to when you would call an office, it would be the same exact experience. So it would say, let's get your insurance information, right? Your street
That's
address.
always number one, right?
Always number one, right?
Right.
All the information that's required.
Right.
All of that's input, your telephone number, and then our agent is logging into those doctors' schedules. And they're saying, okay, the first availability is this date. Now, if the first availability is later, they can ping, right, and say, okay, we want to make him sooner. Of course, they let you know if there's an emergency and you need to go to the emergency room or 911, right? That's always sort of a requirement with a disclosure.
Right.
On the other note, they're making the appointment as if they are that dermatologist in the front desk having all the information. And then they'll say, look forward to seeing you on July 19th at 2 p.m., Howard. And tell your friend thanks again for the referral.
And what if I say, my friend is the brother of the dermatologist there, and he said that I can get a special appointment because of my relationship with him. What do you do? What do you do with something like that?
Oh gosh, Howard, this is the first time hearing about that, but let me put that in the notes. And I will make sure that if we can move you sooner, I will give you a call back and we'll get you in as soon as possible.
Okay. All right. You did a great job.
Well, thank you. Hopefully I'm hired.
Okay. So let's talk about other services that I think in your industry it's a tremendous area of expansion because what people are looking for, whether it's through your type of service or through any service where they're with customers, is leads. They're looking for leads for new businesses,
Yes.
and you want to get qualified leads. Basically qualified leads. So in your business, I went through notes. I not only went to AI to ask about things to ask you, I also went through the notes of your company, what you did. I actually prepared for this.
Fantastic.
So I see that you work with companies in getting leads.
Correct.
So tell me how that works, how you provide those kind of services.
So we have our own database of millions and millions of leads with different data points. Are they married? Is there an email address, a mobile phone, and a landline? Do they have pets? More information than you possibly imagine, right? In our personal CRM. We're also hired by companies to actually qualify or verify their leads. So they might have a database and they want us to make sure the information is accurate, or they want us to call them and survey them to really hone in on specifics so they know that their sales team, right, can reach out to X% of them to do a close, right, or to better position their services or products to that lead pool. So we not only have data, but we can also take data and call it under our umbrella and do that survey work or that lead verification. Or when there's a digital ad and someone says, okay, I'm posting these in Facebook ads in the marketplace, someone may need to have a mortgage refinance and people are putting in that information. It can get immediately transferred to one of our agents and they can ask additional qualifying questions. And then once those qualifying questions have been answered, we can then transfer that to one of their agents to close that sale.
So the type of companies that you would provide these services for are companies that are selling a product, whether it's mortgages or loans or whatever it is. So these type of companies, it's really not so much the receptionist type services, but it's a whole different field.
It's a whole different field. We even have a really great commissionable sales team in-house where there's different options like telco or phone solutions. And companies that are phenomenal really want to get themselves out there and get someone on the phone instead of actually having that huge marketing budget where they're just doing advertising and SEO and SEM in hopes they're page one on Google. So we're taking a data set and actually calling them individuals, decision makers or households, whatever that requirement is, and really providing that to someone telephonically or via text or via email.
Do you provide cold calling services for clients? Do they have to do that?
Absolutely. And not only cold calling just for informational purposes, but also for political work. We've been asked to call, different states quickly to try and help get a bill passed. And we were able to launch within 6 hours. And after 6 hours of dialing, we're told the bill is getting passed. You can stop calling.
Wow.
It's pretty amazing, right? The power of the telephone and just the art of conversation and communication. And when you're calling someone and they answer and making sure that you're concerned about someone's time, that you have the right attention getter, the right voice, the right person, a lot can be achieved.
I understand you also work with charities. I assume the same type of services. Do you call donors that they have had in the past, or are you making cold calls, or how do you work with charities?
We've done both.
Do they get a reduced rate if they're a charity?
You know what? I love helping anyone who helps the community. Right. But yes, we will do fundraising calls, which is, one of our divisions, but also membership, right? Also enrollment or awareness, or really just that brand market that, people want to know. They want people to know this is what we're doing. This is who we are. Can you get that information out there? Can you solicit for a donation? Again, Howard, there's nothing that we don't do, right? So we're really everything contact, right? Every vertical, every form, every channel, right? Well, we're your brand or we're our brand. And then we have the agents and the software.
Now, would you, let's go back to the political for a minute. I'm not asking what your politics are, but let's say a pro-life group wants you to do something for them, or a pro-choice group wants you to do them. Would you say to one of those, or any other group, I'm using that as an example, that we really don't want to work with in your, with your political views, you're not someone we want to work with?
No,
Or
I'm a
never?
capitalist, Howard.
Okay.
And I also believe that everyone should have the right to the same service or product. I love America. It's a democracy. I think that everyone's entitled to their own opinion, their own
Right.
passion. And I support people's differences, and not only support them as a person, but support them in business.
Okay. So where do you see the greatest growth in your business? Do you see it in the lead business or in the reception business? Where do you see the greatest growth potential in your business?
Gosh, I think
I know you're going to say everything, but there's always one area that has a greater potential for growth.
I'm going to say healthcare. Right.
Okay.
To me, healthcare and data, those two components. I do think that when you call a doctor's office, you want to have that live person. You're sick or you're a patient, you don't want to speak to a robot, you don't want to speak to AI. So to me, that's really important. I think for that human touch. I do think the data. I do think that as we keep on expanding our database and our CRM, there's going to be a need for that, really correlated to as well to the AI component, right? People are going to want more data sets, figure out how to contact them in different ways, in different forms. It's getting trickier and trickier, right? To make sure that you have someone have their attention and you're maintaining that relationship.
And who owns the data that you acquire? Is it owned by you, or is it owned by a particular customer?
The majority of our data is owned by us. So we've secured a large database over the course of more than a decade on doing our own survey work, our own lead verification work to really create an extensive database. But we also work with many lead brokers. We're also provided data at times from clients to do verification work, and that data is solely theirs. So based on the contract or the requirement, that's really what dictates, is the data ours? Is it theirs? Is it shared? And then obviously we operate compliantly and based on our contract.
Do you sell your data ever?
Yes.
And do you sell it to more than one company, or is it just to a particular company that you sell it to? In other words, can you sell two companies in the same industry the same data, or does it just go to one company?
Well, we haven't yet. So I haven't taken two competitors and said, here's the same data set. I haven't been asked to do so, but I would be transparent. To me, I think it's very important to operate with integrity and ethics. So if it was released to multiple parties in the same industry, that would be shared.
Mm-hmm. So I know that I do, one of my industries is electronic retailers. And, there's a pool of which brands of dishwashers and TVs are being sold. And without knowing where they're being sold, they get an idea of how much is being sold of each type. I assume that you have that kind of specific data.
Of course.
That you're able to acquire.
100%.
Okay. So when you're looking to expand in other businesses, right now, I think the way that you introduced yourself to me when you met, and the way that I think people know you, is probably the reception business, and then from there it's kind of grown into other things. I mean, is your main competitor companies like Ruby's, companies that are focused pretty much on the reception type of business, or do you see your competitors? I know you're going to tell me you do it better than anybody else.
Well, we do, Howard.
And you may, okay, you may. But I'm talking about in the services that you offer. Are you focusing more on the data business rather than the reception business, or are you like a direct competitor of Ruby's and your model of doing this? Not the quality of your work, but the role model that you have. Is it the same as Ruby's? And I can name a half a dozen other companies, like Ruby's that do it. Or are you distinguishing yourself?
We differentiate. Our speed to service is much quicker. Our cost to the client is less, and our service is superior. So for one to say, our service is really bar none, and we're coming in at a lower price point. And then we do have that really solid, dedicated QA team and management team here on the States. So to us, we really sort of do more. We also have the omnichannel solution. So we do live chat, we can text, we can email. It's not just telephonic. So, with me, I'm not saying they're our direct competitor, but we do get a lot of business from them because there's people who are using their service and they're less than thrilled. So I'll get a referral or a phone call and they'll share their challenges. And then we come in and we make sure that they don't have those challenges going forward.
And when you in your billing, I'm sure there's several different ways that you bill, but do you bill sometimes on a flat monthly basis, or is it on a per call basis, or is it a combination of the two? How, in different industries, I assume it's different ways, but let's take the medical industry. How do you bill the clients? What's the method, Bill?
So our medical clients want a dedicated agent. They want that person full-time. So what we do is we have full-time equivalents to make sure that no one ever calls out. So when they had their own call center internally, they have people who call out sick or they're going on PTO. We double train. So if they want 10, we have 20 that are trained and on call, and we'll do half day shifts. So there's that seamless operation. And then we charge them weekly with an invoice by the hour. So our full bundled cost is actually in that hourly rate. So there's no hidden fees. There's no additional fees. Everything's sent to them weekly. And here's your hourly rate. For some clients, right, there's not that high demand of telephone calls. So those are charged on a hybrid rate. And those are taken in sequence of X number of minutes. And then we wrap up those minutes based on our program and our reporting. And then we invoice them weekly.
Okay, great. Well, this went really quickly. I didn't, it's a business I didn't know that well. I said, well, we have to do 40 minutes. And are we going to be able to do 40 minutes? And we're going to have enough questions. And we're already past 40 minutes. It's actually it's a much more exciting business than I thought it was.
Okay. Thanks.
I said to, normally last week I did a matchmaker, and that was exciting, but this is really exciting. It's good stuff.
I guess not like a matchmaker.
Yeah, it's not well, it's not a matchmaker, but it's pretty interesting stuff, and it really has areas of growth for people, and it's providing a great service to people, and it's not as COVID sensitive as I thought. It's more, seems to me, that what you're providing is sales help as well as just a point of contact kind of information. And I think you got that across. You're a great salesperson for this company. Really,
thank you, Howard. I can't wait for the On the Mark happy hour for us to be in person.
We will, and it'll be downloaded in a little while. So, is there anything else you want to say to the listeners that we have? We have a whole bunch of listeners about your business that I forgot to ask you about, or I didn't make clear.
Ask me anything. I'm Jennifer Schmittler. My contact is 201-320-8912. Call me with questions. Howard, thank you. I really appreciate the time.
And thank you. And thank you for being on the Mark. Thank you.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye-bye. I hope you enjoyed this episode of On the Mark. I started this podcast by quoting John F. Kennedy and would like to end it with quoting one of my favorite baseball players, Nolan Ryan. Enjoying success requires the ability to adapt. Only by being open to change will you have a true opportunity to get the most from your talent. I wish you success in staying ahead of the curve instead of behind the 8 ball. Thank you for tuning in.